I believe that we have Daniel Marcos versus Carlos Vera. This is going to be extremely interesting fight. I believe that right now Daniel Marcos, he is 15-0. He is 5-0 in his last five. He is coming off of that split decision victory, perhaps a robbery over Davy Grant. He is facing Carlos Vera, 11-3, 4-1 in his last five, and he's coming off of a submission, I believe, victory. But I think that might be. I'm not sure if this guy's ever fought in the UFC. I think that he's only fought in the regional circuit, perhaps. So he is, slightly older as well. He's 36 years old compared to Daniel Marcos, who's 30 years old. As far as the reach and the height, they're pretty much both the same. Odds for this fight right now, Daniel Marcos is a minus 475. He opened up at a minus 300. So pretty violent line movement there. Gerard, I'll let you start off the analysis and breakdown for this fight, and I'll share my thoughts after. What do you think about Marcos versus Vera here?
So Carlos Vera, I don't even think he made it past the Ultimate Fighter. So he lost in the Ultimate Fighter. So we don't even know if he's UFC material going up against a 15-0 Daniel Marcos, who's fought the likes of Davy Grant and has a UFC resume. So yeah, Daniel Marcos is a huge favorite, obviously, because Vera is not really doesn't show any UFC caliber skills so far. So, but one thing I will say is, Carlos Vera does kind of have like a dynamic striking style, and his strikes come from different angles. So it could pose a little bit of a frustration to Daniel Marcos because he just fought a Davy Grant who was throwing strikes from many different angles, a lot of kicks, and Carlos Vera likes to throw kicks as well, and throwing different strikes from different angles and not just your straight punches, straight kicks. So Daniel Marcos might not be he might not have the volume early on just because of the awkward style that Carlos Vera might show, but I still got Daniel Marcos here. He's the more precise, cleaner striker, UFC fight record, UFC competition. Carlos Vera couldn't make it out of the Ultimate Fighter, and yeah, Daniel Marcos is the pick here. And I'm not so sure if it'll go decision or a finish, but I got Daniel Marcos.
Perfect, perfect. And um, yeah, Marcos, like I mentioned, he was coming off of a sketch split decision win. I thought the Davy Grant won that fight. Maybe it's because I was on the Davy Grant side, but I thought it was clear to me. But yeah, probably still a little salty about the decision, honestly, because I was looking to fade this guy for his next fight. Unfortunately, I don't think you can fade him against a guy like Carlos Vera. I mean, going back to Marcos, he showed pretty low volume. He was freezing up a lot during that fight against Davy Grant. Seemed just like a different fighter as opposed to his previous UFC bouts. Maybe that was the step up in competition because David Grant is known to be a veteran, a guy that's tried and true in the UFC. So that was kind of his first exposure to someone like that. I do think that Marcos is solid everywhere. He has good power, accuracy, can rack up some combos when he's in rhythm. He has a pretty outstanding 89% takedown defense. He's also 15-0, and the thing I do like about his record, he has 8 decision wins, 7 knockouts. So it shows that he's well rounded throughout the fight. He has the power and cardio to last 3 rounds, and I think that's going to do him a lot of justice in this fight. Because Carlos, I'll give him that he's a quick twitch 135er. He has good movement, decent technique. I think he does have pop on his kicks and can grapple. He's not necessarily the best wrestler or takedown artist. I do think that his takedowns need improvement, especially at the UFC level. He also has a tendency to prefer grappling exchanges, and to get into these grappling exchanges, he will even accept bottom position and try to hunt for subs. So a lot of BJJ nerd kind of tendencies in this game, which is something that I do not like as well. It reminds me of fighters like a Ryan Hall, for example. I think that both men are stepping up on short notice. I believe that Carlos was scheduled to fight on a similar time frame, but just not in the UFC. I think he was going to fight in some kind of other regional circuit. Um, but even with the short notice aspect, I just think that Marcos is going to be a lot better than Vera on the feet. On the ground, I think that he'll be able to hold his own as well. I just don't think that Vera has that dominant ground game to overcome a guy like Marcos, who has been a good decision fighter up until probably last fight and also a good knockout artist. So give me Marcos. I think he's a potential parlay piece, to be honest. I wouldn't mind stuffing him in parlays. What do you think about Marcos as a parlay piece? Would you recommend peer pickers to do that, or what would you think? What do you think about that?
Uh, Personally, I don't think I'll put him in a parlay just because over minus 400. I usually don't like to put over minus 400 fighters there, and the juice not might not be as great, but I'm pretty confident that Marcos can will win this. But yeah, that's just my rule of thumb personally.
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean, especially there's a lot of minus 500, 400 people that have been losing sometimes. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens on that fight. I'm probably a little bit more confident than Marcos on you, and hopefully we'll see what happens on Saturday.